Thank you, Gilbert. So there you go. You have a story of how affirmative action actually worked for an Asian American. So thank you all for being here today. Now that Gilbert's put you all yawning, I'll try to wake you up in the next 20 minutes or so. I just got back from Shanghai myself a few days ago. My body's telling me it's like 1 a.m. So if I kind of wander off, somebody remind me where I was. Okay. Let's see. So my name is Jerry Liu. I'm Board of Trustees for the Cupertino Union School District. I'm just wondering, how many of you went to CUSD schools? Could you just put your hand up real quick? I'm just kind of, okay, about half, about a little over half. So what I thought I'd do today is tell you a bit about myself, how I got into this business. Because I am a tech nerd. I didn't know, if you asked me a few years ago that, or told me a few years ago that I'd be an elected official, I would have laughed in your face. It's not something I would have considered. So I'll tell you a bit about how I got here. I'll tell you a bit about CUSD, just for context. I think Brendan did a fabulous job describing how things work, and I will tell you a few specifics about the district. And then I want to try to focus probably half my time on some of the policy decisions that we're looking at right now, that we're facing. So you have an example of the kind of things that a school board member, kind of decisions and hard choices that we have to make, all right? So about myself, I was born in Taiwan. My family immigrated here when I was 10. And I have very traditional parents, right? So I had 3 choices for career. I could be a doctor, I could be an engineer. Actually, lawyer wasn't ever an option. My parents didn't think much of lawyers, and so it was either I could be a doctor or an engineer. My sister's a doctor, or she went to medical school, and then I'm an engineer. So I currently run a research lab at HP on artificial intelligence, machine learning. Happy to talk about that. And then how did I get into this business? So I went to, let's see, so I went to Cornell because, that's one of the, sure, a lot of you are spending time sort of figuring out what schools to go to, and, my parents probably doing the same kind of thing, did the same kind of thing your parents are doing right now. Got into tech. I had to just, work in tech, actually very happy being an engineer. And so the way I got into all this whole civics thing was I had kids. And you guys probably know, if you think back to kindergarten, they ask your parents to volunteer. And of course, I went into volunteer. And then after you do that for a while, people ask you to, join the PTA to volunteer for the whole school. And I did that. And then the story that Gilbert was telling, right, the Library Commission, I actually didn't know what a commissioner was. I saw an advertisement in the little, newsletter the city sends out, and it sounded cool. And I go to the library every weekend with my kids, right? And then so I got involved, and then, like Gilbert said, it's like, I tell people it's like playing a pinball game where, if you guys don't do that, it's just one after the other. So I served as library commissioner for a couple of years, and then I ran for office. Didn't get in, but I got enough, experience. I was appointed to the Planning Commission, where I worked on land use issues for a couple of years, and then last November I ran for a school board. So it's the kind of thing where I just kind of want to share that it's not exclusive. I think of myself as having 2 jobs. My day job, I go to work, probably much like many of your parents, and do the office thing. And then on weekends and evenings, I devote the time to basically serving the community. I have 2 daughters currently in CUSD, so I'm also a parent, and so that gives me, extra motivation and knowledge about what's going on, and really wanting to make a difference in the district. So Cupertino Union School District, it's one of the largest district in K-8 in Northern California. Just some stats, we have about 17,000 students, and it's over 25 schools. So there are 5 middle schools and 19 elementary, and this one K-8. Budget's about $200 million, so it's a lot of money. It's about twice the size of the budget of the city of Cupertino, just for comparison. And, but no, most of it goes to people. So you hear about teachers being underpaid, they are, but just a guess. So what percentage of our budget do you think goes to like people expenses? People, any brave soul want to shout out a percentage?
80%.
I'm sorry? 80%, it's a good guess. I wish it were 80%. It's actually higher.
85.
That would be good too, and I think we were there a few years ago. This year we're at 90%, 89, 90%. When I took office back in November, the first thing they gave us was a budget update. And so out of a $200 million budget, we're forecast to have a $10 million deficit. Right, so think about this a bit. You have a $200 million budget, 90% of that goes for people. So you really only have about $20 million to play with. And out of that $20 million, you have $30 million in obligations. And so that was one of the big challenges we faced and that we're still facing. Let's see, let me think about CUSD. So you guys have been, that's 25 schools, 17,000 students. We cover 6 cities. So we cover all of Cupertino, the southern half of Sunnyvale, and then elements of Los Altos, Santa Clara, Saratoga, and San Jose. And and the schools are very different, both in terms of just demographics and so it's fairly diverse, and that sort of adds to the challenges that we have. Let's see, in terms of how it runs, just to speak a little bit about that, I think Brandon had covered most of that, is that our main job as a school board is to set policies, right? And then we hire a superintendent to execute on those policies. And at the end of it, that's pretty much everything else kind of falls under that. So we set budget, right, and we monitor that things are being spent the way the budget says. As Brendan said, we set curriculum, and then we basically monitor how things run. I think someone had used an example of a company, and it's a lot like that, right? So we're like the board of directors. Superintendent is really our only employee, and he's like the CEO, and then he hires the staff, hires the principals, the teachers, and all that. But essentially, what we do is we set policy, and then we make sure that the policies are carried out. And then, so that's what, that's sort of the official sort of the description. And a lot of also what we do is really to be that bridge between the community and the school administration. And particularly in this area, think about education. I know people get, passionate about Valco, but wait until you start talking about sex education curriculum. Way more passion, in my opinion. And we've actually currently in the middle of one of those for 5th graders. Yes, so I'll just kind of transition then, and I'll transition to sort of some of the policy things, since I think you're all supposed to be here to learn about policy and governance.
Why don't you give a policy example of a liberal question regarding sex education and a conservative question?
Sex education.
The questions that they suggested.
The questions they suggested.
Sex education.
I'm not following you, Gilbert. Yeah.
So when they explain about sex education, just gets all your interest and everything, Sherry had a really tough decision that, do you want to have a liberal sex education or because you're all over 14, right guys? That regarding, for example, topics, of other stuff that he's very afraid to talk about. He's an immigrant, but I'm American-born Chinese, so I can talk about anything. But when you talk about things like masturbation or when you talk about sex education, these are things that are very sensitive. And as an adult, what do you want your 6th grader to study about? And do you want it generalized or you don't? So why don't you give some suggestions to Trustee Liu, that do you think that it should be liberal or conservative, out of curiosity? If you raise your hand. Do you want, should information should be liberal or should it be conservative? Would you want more information or would you want less information, or would you rather find out by yourself? I'm just curious to get, do you have a, yes?
No, I'm just saying that's not how liberal and conservatives.
I agree. I mean, you can interpret it that way.
Give you back on microphone. All right, thank you, Gilbert. It's interesting. Now you guys are all awake. I just want to say, by the way, when we debate the policy there, we actually don't label liberal and conservative, just to be, because it's the kind of thing where we try to be analytical about it. And so it's really looking at the different topics. I mean, I can give you a few examples. I'm not getting into any of this. So it's really about the level of education that you want to provide, say, a fifth grader, right? So some of these, you have, basically we're down to 2 curriculums in this particular case. And you have some that have examples, right? So you have things like, and this is, it's actually called human growth, by the way. It's more than just reproduction and all that. It's really about, a lot of it about maturity and a sense of self. So let's say you have examples like your best friend, you're at the mall and your best friend wants to steal something from the store and wants you to help, right? And do you want to, and that's actually part of that. It's part of human growth. And so, and so there are debates on whether or not that's appropriate. I think many people think, it's appropriate to talk about that. But then there are situations that are maybe involving a boy and a girl, and there are certain things, and then so there are discussions of whether or not that is appropriate or not. And so that it's a juicy topic to talk about. That's actually not our main policy thing. It is something that's ongoing. I can tell you for CUSD, since y'all, some of you have gone there, right now our biggest problem is the budget, just because CUSD is an interesting position where some of the districts further north have, so basically the way it works, the funding real quick, is we get paid by the state when kids show up to school. And that's why one of the reasons why they want to make sure people don't skip school and all that is because otherwise we don't get paid, right? So it's average daily attendance. And so what happens is some of the districts to the north of us, Sunnyvale, Mountain View, Palo Alto, have high enough property tax collection that they don't go with this formula. So they have a lot of money because they have a lot of the companies have headquarters there. And then to the south of us, some of the districts like Saratoga, they're a lot smaller. And so you have fewer kids to split the money. And Cupertino's in one of those situations where we don't have a lot of large businesses paying the property taxes. And we have one of the largest, we have about 3 times the student per household ratio that we do in the surrounding districts because of the reputation of the district. And so it's one of the reasons we have this funding challenge. We get about $8,000 per student. Sunnyvale gets about $10,000. If you're up in Palo Alto, it's about 12 to 14. And then Woodside, it's over 20. And that's so if you're a kid in Woodside, the Woodside district has about 400 kids. Work it out, it works to be over $20,000 per student, and we're working with 8, right? So it's almost 3 times as much, 2.5 times as much. So that's our biggest issue. You probably notice there's a lot of traffic around here, there's a lot of growth, but the growth is fairly uneven, right? So down towards the south, closer to, for instance, Saratoga, southern Cupertino, the land's all built out. It's all single-family homes. And the houses are going up. And so the kind of people who buy in aren't the kind of families that have kindergartners and first graders. Maybe people are a little bit older when they buy in. And then you look at in Santa Clara and Sunnyvale, lots of apartment buildings going up. And so what's happening here is we have a school in the north called Stockholmeyer. It has about over 1,100 students. And then down in the south, Blue Hills in Saratoga has around 200. And then in San Jose, we have an elementary school called Mira Elementary. They're down to having just 1 elementary class, incoming elementary class. They have about like 12 or 14 kids. And so imagine, how do you run a school when you only have 1 class per grade? And so we have this imbalance and so how do you fix that? Is it busing? Is it redrawing boundaries? And so that's one. But then, we got a new superintendent about a year ago, and we're really trying to do a lot of the things that start to pay more attention back on the sort of the curriculum, right? So those of you that went to CUSD, you know that for middle school, there are 3 math tracks, green, blue, purple, or orange. I don't remember the colors. It turns out that we used to have over 2/3 of our students were in the most advanced track. Because what happens as parents being parents is if your kid is not in the advanced track, you're gonna go visit the principal and say, my kid is super advanced and should be there. And so over time, we had this imbalance where the advanced class, when more, over 2/3 of your students are in the advanced class, not that advanced, right? Because you can only move at a certain rate. And so earlier this year, we adopted a new math track to focus a lot more on individualized achievement than putting people in tracks. There are also, you probably heard of, Common Core a couple of years ago. And so we're in the middle of going through and redoing a lot of these curriculum for science, for social studies. There's a lot of interest in STEM. There's a lot of interest in makerspace. And so we have plans right now to put in maker spaces at every schools to encourage more project-based learning. And then one of the things, if you at all follow politics around here, is we had there's just a lot of controversy over, it seems like, everything, right? And so this incoming school board, the one I'm part of, we actually have 4 new members. So 4 out of 5 of us are new. And we have a superintendent that's it's been there a year and a half. And so what we're doing is we're really reaching out to the community and putting together a strategic plan. And we're coming at it from an interesting standpoint, one that you would find more, I guess, probably in corporate America, where, rather than saying, okay, because the probably when you went through CUSD, if you remember the goals, it's like, we'll pass algebra on the first attempt, and every student will have exposure to technology and some of these kind of things. And we're looking at it from a standpoint of what do we want our graduates to look like, right? Let's say we're a factory and we have kindergartners coming in and we have 8th graders going out the other end. What do we want what kind of attributes do we want these 8th graders to have? Do we want straight A students? Do we want people who are good at, taking tests? Or do we really want to have citizens who are engaged, people who engage in critical thinking and that sort of thing. And so that's an exercise we're going through right now. I don't know, how much time do I have? 20 more minutes? 20? 20 more minutes? I've spoken this long, I saw 20 more minutes? Okay.
You can end early if you want.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'm happy to talk I should save some time for a Q&A, just to kind of, the things that we're working on, right? So the board, when we get back in August, we're gonna continue I'll just, wrap up this human growth thing, because it's kind of an interesting thing. So we had the last meeting of the school year, we had this, and we had a lot of passionate parents show up arguing for this and arguing for that. And it's interesting about human growth is it's the one part of the curriculum where the state law actually calls out, it says in the law, right, that when you consider the curriculum, you want to be sensitive to cultures, and it's not just a black and white kind of thing. And so what we decided after discussion is actually to see if we can support both curriculums. Because what happens is this is an area where people feel like it impacts how their kids are raised, and it's about values, even though we don't get into moralities in the school district. And so that's something that we're going to be handling, looking at again come August, which is how do we support the wishes of folks to sort of have the curriculum that they want. We're going to be going out for a parcel tax in November. It's an off year, but we're kind of desperate for money, and so we'll be making a decision. It's interesting, this is another thing, right? Because we can't raise taxes, and we hired a consultant to sort of poll people, and we asked them, what would be the support for a parcel tax for the school at $125 per parcel and $90 per parcel. What was surprising to me is the $125 per parcel came back at a higher support than $90, which is not what I would have thought of, but I think it speaks to the support this community has for education. And so we're going to be considering placing the $125 per parcel on the ballot this November. And then lastly, And then when we're looking at a bond measure in 2020, but what happens, I'll just talk real quick about parcel taxes and bonds. And these are, aside from the money we get, these are sort of our two ways of getting money from the community. Parcel taxes tend to pay for operational things, teacher salaries and buildings and books and all of that. Did I say buildings? Not buildings. Teacher salaries, books, maintenance type of things, whereas the bond kind of goes to making improvements, infrastructure improvements and all that. Yes? Sure.
Okay, I'm also a school board member in Saratoga, so we went through the pretty much similar things. One of the hot topics this past year is the human growth curriculum and the math. So you're probably all familiar with about that. So, but I just got an idea. So so far we learned about that in the school and the city, we have a board member or city council, either like a governing body to make a decision. How about, do you know that within, and that is the kind of governing a school district or a city, right? How about, do you know that within your school, right? So is any other kind of body from the student which is actually making this decision for you at the school level? Any idea? What are the kind of student body or something within your schools making some school-related rules? Yes. Stand up and speak louder.
ASB?
Is ASB making the rules? Yeah, of course, right? Do you have a student handbooks? Student handbooks making a lot of the rules. Who make decision on the student handbooks? Do you know that? Or you just obey without questioning them? I think my daughter said, I asked her about, hey, what is you know about the policy? Remember in the survey, in the application form, we asked you, what are the policy related to you in the local, your concern? And my daughter said, I don't think the bathroom policy in our school is very reasonable. Okay, they don't let us to use the cell phone in the bathrooms. That's very relevant, right? Is there any policy within your schools you think it doesn't make sense? Raise your hand. Okay, speak loud. Stand up and speak louder.
So I think the policy about how like limiting the number of classes that like students can't take 7 classes, that doesn't make sense, and like limiting the class, like what classes students can take in like sophomore year and freshman year is unreasonable to a certain extent.
I totally relate to you. We have the same problem, right? Because, for example, we don't have enough electives, and we don't have the master schedule. If not enough students sign up for certain classes, you won't be available. Or certain classes only available for seniors, right? So that is a policy that maybe you want to challenge, or you should at least bring it up to the. If you have a question about a policy like that, who should you go to? Okay, if you don't feel it's reasonable, or maybe this policy was set maybe 10, 20 years ago, right? It does not apply anymore in the current student body, current community. Okay, who should you go and challenge and question or express your opinion? Which organization or which party you should go to voice your concern? Anyone? For example, like, who should you, if you don't feel it's reasonable, who should you go?
The board is the FUHSD board.
Yeah, it is the board of trustee making the decision. And do you know, I'm a school board, so I have the concern myself, but we're not able to make changes because why? Not all the policy issue being raised up and reflected to the governing board will be answered because we have other concerns we need to consider. For example, in this case, what do you think the other factors play in so the board cannot really increasing so many classes? What are the other factors as a board? We have to take into consideration. Any question? Anyone? Yes.
Budget?
Definitely the budget, right? Because we only have you increase more classes without enough student enrollment. Definitely you have to increase the teaching headcount, lots of things, right? But that's a great question, right? Any other policy in your school you don't feel comfortable, or maybe within the student body, ASB or student body, they will make decisions, right? Another thing is, in the city, okay, let me ask, any one of you is participate in the ASB? Is part of your ASB school student body? Raise your hand if you're part of the ASB, or you know the ASB president.
Or the student council.
Yeah, that's important to make good friend with your ASB president or some of the people, because then if you have any issues or concern or things you propose to change in your school, you can talk to the ASB. They are the student governors in your schools. Okay. So maybe you should consider to run for ASB. So that is first the stepping stone to get you to feel, instead of if you are not at the table, you will be on the menu, right? We say that. So if you are not a decision-making, a part of the decision-making body, you will be, just be whatever people feel, be just a kind of victim or whatever is, the traditional policy. Okay, anyway, so how about on the city level? Do you know that even in the city, or even some of the county, they also have a group of youth be able to involve and chip in their voices from youth point of view on lots of the city things. Do you know what kind of group is that? Yes.
Mountain View has the Youth Advisory Commission.
Which organization?
Mountain View has the Youth Advisory Commission.
Yeah, in most of the city, they have a youth commissions. And in the county, they also have a youth commission. Depends on the organization. So any one of you is part of in the youth commission or some sort of things. Yes.
So we have, okay, so, okay. So we have a new kind of board called the Youth Activity Board established in Cupertino. So yeah, we have, Cupertino has our own teen commission and they do their cool anti-drooling stuff. But we have, so basically Youth Activity Board is like a board dedicated to, we basically try to help run like the city's youth-oriented activities, and our main goals were established mostly to advocate for like reducing teen stress, focusing on non-academic activities, I guess, encouraging people to go out and connect more with the community rather than staying behind books and computers all the time. So, I mean, we kind of work 50-50 in terms of, advocating for certain things, but also working to establish like actual policies and actual events so that we can move forward.
Any some new proposal your commission is trying to come up with recently?
So mostly we focus on organizing events as opposed to lobbying to the city. That's more of what Teen Commission does. But we basically try to indirectly help change the conversation by allowing people to have more avenues and opportunities to go out and explore the city, as opposed to kind of, again, staying home and being academic all the time. So although we don't directly advocate, we do try to indirectly advocate and establish kind of more reasons for teens to go out and advocate for themselves.
Do you feel that you're very effective and that these boards are good for teens to get involved?
I'll be quite blunt, I think we're a lot more effective than whatever the hell's been going on in the past couple of years, so I'll leave it at that. So far we've established, it's our first year of running, actually we haven't even run for half a year yet, but we've been able to establish a lot of successful events so far, and we have been able to basically get people out and do things that other commissions were like, well, that's impossible, you can't get more people than that. We just hosted an event with basically $0 worth of our own spending, and we managed to get over 100 people to go. People told us that was impossible. I mean, you always hear people tell you, oh, this thing's impossible, that's impossible, don't do this, don't do that, but we just did it, so.
And I'm going to put you on the spot since you live in Cupertino. What do you think we should do with Falco?
Falco, oh boy.
Give him a chance.
Well, okay, so I actually went to the library about a year ago or so, and they had two people, so they had a tent here saying like against SB 35 or whatever the hell, and they had another person there talking about why they should be for this, and
What is SB 35?
huh?
What is
So if I remember correctly, it's either one or the other. Okay,
Let's give up.
okay, yeah.
Anyone else have involved in the youth commission? No, none of you? Okay, so I think either you're ASB officer or youth commission. I heard lots of people telling me, oh, we just organize events. But in reality, no, you should have more responsibility, you should have more authority than that. And probably because, like lots of us, we're not aware of that this opportunity. You actually being a commission, you have you're representing the youth to make decisions, to advocate, to make changes. Like library commission, right? You make decisions for the library, lots of things, how the library do, and what kind of program, what direction, the city library we're going to move. So it's the same thing with if you're involved in the youth or ASB. Even though maybe you see, everybody just organizing event, maybe you should talk to your advisor. Okay, training like this will help to equip you and get you learn about policy making, let you learn more about what kind of things, the powers or the authority you have as a commission, because you're representing the people, you're representing the youth,